All right, now that we've got our head wrapped around what rational numbers are, which means it's a fraction or a terminating or repeating decimal, we're going to dive into adding. So, essential question, how do I add rational numbers? So let's remember, flashback a ways to decimals first of all, okay? And what you'll notice is this textbook really wants to emphasize using the number line a lot. And so we'll model it that way, but also talk about, kind of the basic math way of doing the algorithm too. Malachi hikes for 2.5 miles and then stops for lunch. So here you went, 1, 2.5 right there, okay? So there's my 2.5, and then he hikes 1.5 more. So we'll do 1.5 more right there. And adding both of those, you see you land exactly at 4. How many miles did he hike? 4 miles. How do you show that algebraically without a number line? You have 2 and 5/10, 1 and 5/10. Whenever you add, line up your decimal points. Put your decimal point down below, and there we go. All right. If you wanted to write 4.0, I suppose you could, since this took it out to the tens place, but frequently we don't, so we'll just leave it. Okay, fractions. Here we go. Do you remember how you add fractions? Here they've got a number line, and notice before we even get started, here's where 1 is, and it's divided into 4 intervals. So as we measure this out or model this on the number line, make sure you're watching. Each of these is basically 1/4 at a time. So Kyle pours out 3/4 of a liter from a beaker. So we don't know how much was in there, but I know that if I'm pouring out, I'm kind of going backwards 3/4. Okay, because every one of these intervals will be 1/4. And then he's going to pour out another 1/2. Now, I got to think a second, since this is split into intervals of 4th, 1/2, if I want to turn that into fourths as a common denominator, remember that if I can see what I multiply the denominator by, multiply by that same value in the numerator, because 2 over 2 is really 1, and I'm not changing the value. So I'm going to go back another 2/4. 1, 2, boop. That lands me at negative, well, if I look at the mixed number here, it's -1 1/4. If I look at the math way, I'd say, well, I had -3/4, and I'm adding another -2/4, and I get -5/4. Okay? Write this under here. When you add fractions, you've got to have common denominators. Gotta. All right? So I'll model this on the number line, but something like this you can do pretty quickly. It says take 3. So I get over here to 3. And then I'm going to add 1.5 more. So I'm going to add 1.5 more. Land right there at 4.5. I guess I could put it right there. Okay. If I were going to add these, I would line it up this way so that you see, put the whole numbers under each other, and then put the fraction to the right. Since there is no fraction here, if you want, you could think of that as no halves or 0 halves. And then when you add them up, you get 4.5. Boom. All right, how about let's flip back to decimals here. -2 and 5/10 plus -4 and 5/10. Now remember, if I do it on the number line, negative means moving to the left. So I'd go back 2 and 5/10 is a half. So there's -2.5. And then I'd have to go back 4.5 more units. So, well, maybe I'd do it this way. There's the half, and then I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4 more units. All of this is 4.5 more, and you land at -7. After a while, we're going to get kind of tired of this number line business, especially if my numbers get larger. So what I want you to think is that both signs are negative. And if I add a negative number plus another negative number, my answer will be negative. Then what I recommend is take the absolute value of each of these, the 2 and 5/10, the 4 and 5/10, line them up, and you get 7 and 0/10, or just 7. But remember, my sign has to be negative. All right? So pay attention to your signs as well as what you're doing math-wise. Now, different signs. So here's where we're having this tug of war on the number line. Okay? During the day, the temperature increases by 4.5 degrees. So let's just say I'm starting at 0 because I don't know where I started, but I'm going to increase 4 and 5/10 degrees. That's 4.5. And then I'm going to decrease 7.5. So from here, I've got to go back 7.5. So as you start counting, count that first half and get that out of the way, and then go back 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You should land here at -3. -3 degrees was the overall change, or you can think it was a decrease of 3 degrees. Because when it says what is the change, if it's going down, you've got to either use the sign to tell me it went backwards or decreased, or you have to say the word. You can't just say 3 degrees, okay? Now, mathematically, this is like saying, what's 4.5 plus -7.5? If you have different signs, I need you to think different signs means difference. If I could spell, that'd be great. Okay, so decide on the sign. The sign is going to be negative, and then you have to take the difference of the absolute values. 7.5, 4.5, line them up, subtract. That's 0, this is 3, but my answer has to be negative. Okay, so make sure you're paying attention to the sign and whether you're going to add these absolute values or subtract them. Same sign, sum. Different signs, difference. Ernesto writes a check for $2.50. That's a subtraction. That's going backwards 2.5 right there. Then he deposits. That means he's adding. So here we went backwards 2.5, and then we're going to add 6. And as we start adding, now because I don't have a halvesy in here, when you hop, you got to hop at the halfway mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you use a number line, that's what adding 6 looks like from a position of -2.5. Okay, that tells me I should end up with $3.50, and it's a positive increase. Or since they asked it in a way that says, what is the overall increase or decrease, then you should use those words to answer. Here's how you do this by just showing the math part of it. You have -2.50, or $2.50, and you're adding 6. So first of all, decide, what's the sign of my answer? Do I have more negative power or more positive power? Because these absolute values are 2.5 and 6, 6 is stronger, your answer will be positive. Different signs, difference. You have to write 6 with a decimal point and 2 decimal places so that you can line up your 2 numbers. And then we're going to find the difference of these 2. And you should end up with 3.50, or 3.5, or in this case, money, $3.50. Okay? Let's look at a couple of these. Pause the video and take a look and see if you come up with this same answer. Do these have the same sum? Well, -3 plus 2. Negatives are going to win. Different signs, difference. 2 plus -3. This answer is going to be negative. I have to take the difference. Ooh. Does it matter if the negative number is the first addend, meaning the first number, or the second? No, doesn't matter because adding is commutative. That's that property that says you can change the order. Do you think the sum of a negative number and a positive number will always be negative? Sometimes it's best to get an example. Now, up here, when we had negative 3 plus 2, I got a negative number, okay? But can you come up with an example where it isn't a negative answer? How about negative 5 plus 20? There's a negative number and a positive number. This time, I get a positive 15 for my answer. So, do you think it will always be negative? No, it can vary, I guess, is a way. Plus, I could also do this. Negative 5 plus 5. Then what do you get? Ha! 0 is not positive or negative. Boom. All right, let's take a look at a couple of these. They ask you to model it on the number line. So if I start at negative 8 and then I move forward 5, you end up with this. Oh, we better make sure you have a common denominator. So let's turn this into 2/4. 2/4 and negative 3/4. So I start here, but I have to go backwards 3/4. You get this. Check this one. You can probably do this in your head without even modeling, but just for the sake of starting at negative 1 and coming forward 7, you get here. Okay? Oh, these are exactly opposites. Okay? If I started at 2.5 and I came backwards 2.5, you get exactly 0. Same thing there. Start at negative 4.5, come forward 4.5. I suppose I should accurately write this as well. You end up with 0. Ta-da. Okay, I think you are about ready. Oh, we had one more, a couple more. All right, work through these, see what you come up with. 5.5, 525. She spent that. She made, that means she earned 375. And then she sold an additional 450. That would be positive. What is her overall profit or loss? Take these two that have the same sign and add these guys together first. I can do that by associative property. So add 375 and 450. That gives you $8.25 to the positive. Now I have negative 525. Positive 8 something, negative 5 something. I'm going to end up with a positive answer. And then different signs mean difference. Looks like we should end up with $3. Take a look at these ones. Go ahead and combine the two that have the same sign first. Okay, I get 5 and 5/10 here. And then these have different signs. My answer will be positive because 5.5 is stronger or has a larger absolute value. And you should be able to subtract, find the difference of the two. Here, same signs, sum, add them. So negative 2 and negative 2.25 is negative 4.25. I'm just going to write that right there. I have a positive 3.25 that I'm adding. Now, when I look at these two, this one has more power, so my answer will be negative. And then different signs, find the difference. The fractions go to 0/4, and you're just left with 1, and it's negative. Add these two together first because they're both negative, and same signs give you a sum. 3 and 25/100, 2 and 75/100, 10 and 6. This is exactly a value of 6, but it has to be negative. Plus 5. Now we're just back to integers, okay? 6 has stronger power because it has a bigger absolute value, so my answer will be negative. Different signs, difference. 6 minus 5 is 1. Finally, these two, combine the 2 with the same sign. Here we go. You should end up with positive 20. Sweet, 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 sweet. All right, in summary, here's what you need to watch out for, okay? Fractions, make sure you have common denominators. If you have decimals, line up that decimal point. Okay, if you have same signs, add them together. If you have different signs, then you need to find the difference, which means subtract. I should change it this way. Different signs. Find the difference. All right, look to Schoology for your assignment, and as always, may the force be with you.